Every January, we see the same pattern. Big goals, bold declarations, all or nothing promises. And by February, or even earlier, most of them are gone. Not because people don't care, not because they lack discipline, but because resolutions ask too much of our nervous system that hasn't been trained for consistency. So today I want to explore why small daily practices outperform big New Year promises and what neuroscience teaches us about habit formation. Why rituals regulate the nervous system better than motivation, and how a simple breath-based micro ritual or rituals can quietly change everything. So motivation is often treated like a character trait, right? Like a characteristic that we all want. But motivation is actually a state dependent experience. Let me repeat that. It's a state dependent experience. What does that mean? Well, it fluctuates based on sleep, stress, blood sugar, emotional load, nervous system regulation. Now, I've personally seen that in myself. Some days I'm super motivated, some days I'm not. That's why motivation really spikes in January, but then collapses when life inevitably happens. So relying on motivation to sustain change is like relying on adrenaline to power a business. It'll work briefly, and then it burns everything out. Rituals work a little differently. They don't require a hype. They don't require willpower, right? They rely on repetition, safety, and familiarity. Here's the neuroscience behind habit formation. You know, I'm a big geek and a neuroscience advocate. So I really want to give you this because from a neuroscience perspective, habits are not created by intention. They're created by neural efficiency. So your brain is constantly asking, what uses the least energy? What feels familiar? What keeps me safe? And when a behavior is small, predictable, repeated, non-threatening, the brain begins to automate it. And this is why dramatic overhauls, right, that we want to start in January, that's why they fail. Because they activate that threat and overwhelm in our nervous system. But these micro practices, they slide under the radar. They don't alarm, the nervous system. Threat, threat, threat. They create repetition without resistance. I love that. Creating repetition without resistance. And over time, the brain rewires around them. That's not motivation, my dear friends. That's neuroplasticity. So goals are a little future oriented, right? Not a little, they are. Rituals are actually present moment anchors, and the nervous system only lives in the present moment, right? When life feels uncertainty, unpredictability, or overwhelm, rituals actually create structure, safety, and rhythm. This is why humans have always used rituals, right? Not for productivity, but for regulation. A ritual tells your body, this moment is familiar. I know what's coming up next. I am safe here. And when the body feels safe, stress chemistry decreases, right? Emotional regulation improves, focus stabilizes, and energy becomes more consistent. And this is especially critical for leaders, right? Because decision making depends on nervous system stability. I also would love to make a distinction between routines and rituals, right? Routines are very rigid. Rituals are relational. Routines are about performance, right? Rituals are about presence. Leaders don't need more to-do lists. They need regulation. They need regulation that anchors inside these demanding days. A ritual is very adaptable. It adapts, it meets you where you are, it supports your energy instead of draining it. This is why rituals outperform rigid morning routines all the time, especially for high performers, navigating complexity, pressure, and constant decision making. Morning rituals are not about optimization. They're about setting your internal tone, right? A simple morning breath can shift you out of that sleep mode, can reduce that anticipatory stress, right? Can increase clarity before that external stimuli, that input. So like 3 to 5 nasal breaths, right, through the nose before checking your phone in the morning. Longer exhales to signal calm to your nervous system. A brief pause to orient toward intention and not urgency. This isn't about adding more things to do or adding time. It's about changing your state. State determines behavior, and behavior determines outcomes. And evening rituals are so important, but they're often overlooked. But they're so essential for sustainable performance, right? Without nervous system completion, stress actually accumulates, sleep quality declines, and emotional residue carries into the next day. A simple evening breath ritual can be so beautiful. It can signal closure. It can shift the body into a recovery mode. It can improve your sleep depth, support your emotional digestion of things that happen during the day. Leaders who don't close their stress loops carry yesterday into tomorrow, and eventually they burn out. This is where my Breathwork Barista philosophy was born, not from these long practices, not from complicated protocols, but from one question. What's the smallest intervention that creates the biggest shift? A micro reset is short, accessible, repeatable, nervous system friendly. Think of it like an espresso shot for your nervous system, not to stimulate, but to regulate. And these moments, practiced consistently, really embodied, heartfelt, they create an identity level change over time. Not through force, not through willpower, not through that motivation, but through familiarity. So let's do 90 seconds together. Let's sit comfortably. 90-second micro breath work, okay? We're going to sit comfortably, inhaling slowly through the nose, exhaling a little longer. Then the inhale. Inhaling slowly, exhaling longer. On each exhale, imagine any release of pressure to do more. A few more breaths in and out. One more breath together, in and release. Just 3 breaths. That's enough. Consistency beats intensity every single time, my beautiful people. And the future doesn't belong to those who promise more. It actually belongs to those who practice these small, sustainable rituals, especially when no one is watching. Rituals build trust with the body. Trust builds consistency, and consistency builds change. And the breath is the simplest ritual we have. So why do New Year's resolutions fail and rituals succeed? Because we need to include the neuroscience of habit formation and breath-based micro rituals to create that sustainable change for yourself and those around you, your team and your loved ones. Thank you for checking in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If this video was helpful, please share it with someone who may really benefit from this amazing information, because the more we share, the more this information gets out to the world, the more we all become more regulated with our nervous system. And then there's just less stress, less burnout, less anxiety in the world. I truly believe that. And that's my mission, is to help as many people as possible. This is your Breathwork Barista saying goodbye and inviting you to take one conscious breath at a time. Ciao for now.